Today we're going to be replacing the rear rotors and pads on a 2013 Chrysler Town Country. This is the exact same process on the Town Country from years 2011 all the way up to 2018, and likewise on the Dodge Caravan and Dodge Journey. There's a couple things to keep in mind on these rear rotors. If you have the HD brakes, you need to get a different size. I'll show you how you can determine that here in a little bit, but let me show you how you can very easily do this yourself at home. To get started, we're going to remove the brake reservoir cap, and the reason you need to do this is because when you're compressing those rear caliper pistons, it will cause this fluid to go up in here. So we want to make sure when we do that, we make sure that the fluid is not overflowing out of this reservoir. Now we're ready to jack up the vehicle. Just make sure you use a good quality jack stand under there and put some wheel chocks on the tires. Then we'll remove the wheel over here, and the lug nut's just going to be a 20 mil. Then we're going to remove the caliper here, and it's just going to be a 13 mil here and a 13 mil down there. And if these guide pin bolts start spinning, what you can do is put a 24 mil open end right here, and that'll hold that in place. Then remove your caliper, and we'll set it aside and we'll support it with a brake hanger. Now we're ready to remove the bracket, and you just got two 18 mil bolts here. And remove the bracket. Then the last thing on the removal is the rotor, and sometimes you get lucky and these will pop off. Other times you got to get a little bit aggressive with them, but eventually they will pop off. Before we install our new rotor on here, just take a wire brush and make sure you get a little bit of this corrosion off here, because we want our rotor to sit in here flush. Now we're ready to install our new rotor on here, and I just have some of the Bosch Quitecast. I've used these before, I really like them. One note here real quick, there's two different sizes on these rear rotors. If you have the HD brakes, it's this part number that I have here. And how you can tell is on the front caliper, if it has two pistons up there, that means you have the HD brakes. If you go to your front caliper and there's only a single piston, then that means you have the smaller brakes and you need to get the smaller rotor. But just make sure you're getting the right rotor for your vehicle. And this one that we have here, it is the HD brake, so we do have the larger rotor as well. Now we're ready to prep the bracket, so remove your old pads and these clips as well. Then take a wire brush, and you want to clean up all the corrosion on these points here so we can install our new clips back in there. Then take a little brake clean. Then we'll take our new pads, and again I have the Bosch stuff here, and it will come with new clips. Then take our clips and we'll install them on the bracket. And sometimes you gotta fight with these a little bit. Just make sure it's seated flush on all four corners. Just like that. Now we're ready to lubricate the slides here and also these guide pins. This version here for Bosch, it did come with some of this brake lube. If not, make sure you get some of this brake lube and make sure you lubricate both the slides here and the slide pins. So starting with the slide pins here, you're just going to gently pull it out. Take a little bit of your brake lube. And you don't have to put a lot on here. The idea is just enough in there to make sure that pin can slide in and out. And just make sure when you install it, you get it past that lip, like that. And now we're ready to put the bracket back on the vehicle. So install your bracket on there and take our two 18 mil bolts. And just make sure when you're installing this bottom one that you also install this plate down there as well. Then we're going to tighten up both of these bolts to 74 foot-pounds. Moving on to installing the pads, just put a little brake lube on the ends here. You don't have to get wild with this, just make sure you get a little on there so it can easily slide in and out. Then go ahead and set your pad in here. And you're going to kind of fight with this initially until you get lined up, but eventually it will slide in just like that one did. Just make sure when you're done here that these are easily able to slide in and out. In order to install our caliper over here on our new pads, because they are thicker, we're going to need to push this piston in a little bit farther. In order to do that, you're going to need a rear disc brake tool. I have an OTC one here that I've used many years. If you don't want to buy one, you can always rent one of these tools for free. But you want to make sure you get the piece that has the notches there that will line up in those holes. Then we'll get our tool set up and then we'll ratchet that piston inside of that caliper. So then just line up our piece in those notches. So once you have it lined up, where it's flush and those notches on our tool are in the notches there, then we'll begin the process of compressing that piston. And also, as I mentioned there before, this is a good time to also monitor that brake reservoir up there, because as we compress this in, you will see that fluid go up a little bit in the reservoir. Just make sure that it's not spilling out outside of the reservoir. And usually you have to use a breaker bar to get a little bit of leverage initially, because this is going to be tight on there, but eventually it should loosen up. And as you keep ratcheting it, just make sure you keep tightening this piece as well. Then you'll watch that that piston is going to slowly keep going inside that caliper there. All right, so once you get it fully seated back there, then just go ahead and remove our tool. Then when you're done compressing the piston, just make sure our notch is lined up here so it's straight here. On the back of your pad, you're also going to have a indentation there that must fit inside of this notch here. Once you got those lined up, then we'll go ahead and install our caliper. Then install our guide pin bolts, and we'll torque these to 26 foot-pounds. And again, if this piece spins here, just put your 24 mil on there so you can tighten that up. And when you get that tight, just go through here and make sure everything looks good. Then repeat that same process on the other side. Once you're done with the other side, don't forget to reattach the brake reservoir cap up there, and you've completed your job here. So hopefully this helped you out. If it did, please give me the thumbs up. If you're interested in more content like this, please hit that subscribe. But again, I hope this helped you out, and thanks for watching.